The government will finally pay the legal fees of those who survived abuse at the Lake Alice Child and Adolescent Unit. Nearly half of the $6.5 million settlement paid between 95 survivors in 2001 went towards their legal fees. But as senior political reporter Bridie Whitten reports, it is still a long way from the full redress survivors are waiting for.
Emotional scenes in Parliament when the landmark abuse and care inquiry was tabled in July. Among them, survivors from the Lake Alice Psychiatry Unit, where children and young people were tortured. Survivors like Malcolm Richards have been calling for compensation for years.
I'd like the government to properly compensate us for destroying our lives.
Today, a step towards that. The government announcing it will pay the $2.6 million legal costs deducted from a previous settlement in 2001.
There were multiple governments over the 20 years who chose not to put this right, but we are a government that wants to do right by survivors, and we will put this right.
Survivors can show their receipt to the Ministry of Health and be reimbursed. Stanford said the fees ranged from $15,000 to $55,000.
I know how much this means to survivors. I've spoken with a number of them over the last few days to advise them of this decision.
Malcolm Richards couldn't talk on camera today because he is in hospital awaiting treatment. But in a statement, told 3 News he wasn't happy, saying the payment is not inflation adjusted, and if he'd had that money in the initial settlement, it would have been enough to buy a freehold home, whereas today it would be lucky to be a deposit. Grant Cameron represented those 95 claimants in 2001 and agrees the government should reimburse in today's value.
The depreciation over that 23 years would be colossal. Simply saying we will pay your fees in the dollar quantum as it was rendered in 2001 goes nowhere to meet the true value of money.
We've chosen to take an approach that's consistent with all redress that we pay, which is that we do not adjust for inflation.
Malcolm also says he's still waiting for redress, specifically for the torture he endured at Lake Alice.
We've made it a commitment that we will prioritise those torture redress payments this year, so there will be more to say around Lake Alice.
As the government prepares to make its formal apology for abuse in state care on November 12, it's furiously working in the background to have an update on redress for all survivors then too.
An apology which has been decades in the making.
And if either of our last 2 stories brought up any issues for you, there is support available any hour of the day or night on the National Helpline. You can call or text 1737.